So, good morning, everyone. My name is David Carter. I'm with the Kansas Energy Program at Kansas State University. I want to welcome everybody to the webinar, and I hope everybody can hear me. If you can't, just raise your hand, and we have some people that will be able to help you out. Anyway, I thank everybody for attending. We know you're busy, so we appreciate you giving us some of our time. I can tell you that those of us at the Energy Program, we're in the last 2 weeks of our state fiscal year, so we have to get all of our deliverables done by June 30th. So we can certainly understand, everybody's busy schedule. So appreciate you for being here. I will say one of the reasons we're doing this webinar is because we had tried to do a full day workshop on energy performance contracting, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but we didn't have quite the number of registrants that we wanted, and particularly we didn't have the audience that we wanted. So we decided perhaps a webinar on the energy performance contracting as an introduction to the full day workshop might be in order. So just to give you a little bit of information about where we're going to go today, this is the agenda. We're going to talk to you a little bit about who the Kansas Energy Program is and where we're located. Some terms to remember, and just, what is energy performance contracting. I know there are a lot of people on the call right now who could actually give this webinar and could probably even do a better job than I can. But there are also some on here who may not have ever heard of what energy performance contracting is. So we're going to get into some of that, a little bit of the history, and then delve down into the Kansas Facility Conservation Improvement Program, some eligible projects, and then give you some results of one of the entities that has participated in the FCIP and how they're doing. So some logistics, some of you will realize that we're going to start you off muted so that we don't get any background noise. If you do have a question, you can either raise your hand or use the chat bar that's on your menu and enter the question. And I have Yvonne Cook and Ryan Hamill standing by to hopefully help with some of those questions and manage everything. The webinar will be recorded, and the link will be sent to all the registrants, so you'll get all the slides, the hyperlinks that are in there. And you can call us anytime, of course, on the with the contact information that's on the last slide. And I do want to let everybody know that this is just an introduction. We're not going to get as down deep into the FCIP process and energy performance contracting as we can. We would like to do a full day workshop to really get into the nitty-gritty. I alluded to the issues that we had with registering for the full day workshop, which we were going to do about a month ago. And when we sent out all the invitations, we were getting plenty of energy service companies registering for the workshop, but none of the government entities that can participate in the EPC and the FCIP. So we thought that if we had an introductory webinar to explain about it in a little bit more detail and why we're trying to reach out to those entities, that perhaps when we schedule the 4-day workshop in the fall, we'll get more of the target audience that we really want to have. So in response to that, I'm going to submit 3 polling questions. And if you can go ahead and take some time to answer those. And this will give us a little bit of information that will help us plan for that full day workshop in the fall. So the first question is, when would you prefer to attend a full-day workshop? And we have 3 specific choices, and then one non-specific. And then what day of the week would you prefer to attend a full-day workshop? And then whether or not you're actually interested in attending a full-day workshop. So we'll let that run for a little while. Right now we're at about 25% voting. I don't have any Jeopardy music to play, so. This is kind of like watching the the polls that they do at football games during halftime or in between the breaks, watching the relish race or something, seeing which one is in the lead now. We're about 26 of 36 of the voting. And it looks like things might have leveled off for a little while, so I will go ahead and end the polling and we'll commence with the rest of the webinar. Thank you very much. So a little bit about who we are. So of course we have the Kansas Corporation Commission that is responsible for the regulation of the investment-owned utility companies, among many other things that they regulate. Within the Kansas Corporation Commission, there is an energy division, and they have been administering the Facility Conservation Improvement Program now for a number of years. And Lynn Retz is currently the director of the energy division. So she administers the FCIP and other energy activities and programs within the KCC. The Kansas Energy Program is housed within the Engineering Extension Department within the College of Engineering at Kansas State University. And we were established in 2016 through a partnership with the Kansas Corporation Commission. And they came to us to ask us to provide technical services to them in the areas of energy education, small business energy assessments, and the Facility Conservation Improvement Program. And we've had a good time doing that. We keep quite busy, and like I said, we're currently in the last 2 weeks of our current fiscal year, and we're looking for the good things with the start of the new year coming up in July. So this is where, and when I say where we go, this is the Kansas Energy Program and essentially KCC, since we're working in close partnership with each other. We actually go everywhere in the state of Kansas. The blue little teardrops that you see are actually the FCIP projects in which we have participated. And what we and KCC would like to see is just an increased proliferation in those projects, because energy performance contracting and the Facility Conservation Improvement Program we see as just a great tool for governmental entities to implement energy efficiency. And our overall goal is to reduce energy consumption in the state of Kansas and to allow your facilities to operate more efficiently and save you operating expenses at the same time. So we think it's a really good project. We were listening to Tim Unruh, the president of the National Association of Energy Service Companies, a couple of days ago, and he said that working in Washington, D.C., you're pretty much bound by legislation to develop acronyms. And so there are just a few terms to remember as we go through here that hopefully I won't use very often. I'll try and spell them out, but energy ECM is energy conservation measures. Those are what the energy service companies are going to be looking for as they do your preliminary and investment grade audits. The energy performance contracting is what we will be talking about, but essentially it is a turnkey operations whereby the energy service company is going to come in and do a wide number of services all in the same turnkey operation, and guarantee energy savings, which will be used to actually pay for the cost of the projects. The Facility Conservation Improvement Program is essentially Kansas's answer to the energy performance contracting. It's just rolled up under the FCIP umbrella. The investment grade audit is what the energy service companies will ultimately provide prior to entering the energy performance contract, so that you can pick and choose which ECMs you want to actually implement. And then the International Performance and Measurement and Verification Protocol, which is a mouthful, but is a document that we all look at to ensure that the savings that are identified through the IGA are actually achieved at the facility. Because the main crux of whether an EPC is going to work or not, and the reputation of the EPCs and the performance of the energy service companies is that achieving the energy reduction that was identified. And if a facility doesn't, it's and there are a number of reasons why it might not, but if it doesn't, then that's puts a kind of a cloud over the program, and we really don't want to see that, because it is a very valuable tool. And there are a number of energy service companies that are on the call today who have helped these governmental entities reduce energy and all the resultant benefits from that, decreased pollution and operational savings, funding that can be used instead of repairing equipment can be put to other good uses within those entities. So we look at it as just a great program. Then the KCC is the Kansas Corporation Commission, and M&V is just the nickname for measurement and verification. So what is energy performance contract? Well, as I alluded to earlier, it's a turnkey service, actually compared to design, build, construction contracting, whereby the energy service company is a kind of a one-stop shop for a multitude of tasks that will be done all within the same project. So you can see here, they'll do an energy audit, they'll do design engineering for each of the ECMs that are proposed. They'll do the construction management, arrange for long-term project financing if you need it. Some entities will go through their own financing protocols, but if you need the ESCOs to either arrange that many of them are, I think maybe all of them are capable of doing so. They'll do commissioning of the equipment that is put into operation. They'll provide instructions on operations and maintenance, and then finally they'll do measurement and verification so that all parties are satisfied with the results of the programs. And we'll get into one of the case studies. I'd hope to have another, but I'll explain why I'm only using one. But measurement and verification is an extremely important part of the entire process. And I will say, putting this webinar together, I was doing a little bit of research, and I would like to thank the National Association of Energy Service Companies. They had provided a report to the Environmental Protection Agency Energy Star program back in October 2007, and I found this, and I actually learned some things that I had not realized in regard to energy performance contracting and the energy service companies. But these really began with the beginning of demand side management for utilities, where the energy service companies were provided to establish were established to provide manpower and systems to enable utilities to meet federal and state mandates for reduction of energy. And through the evolution of these programs, some of the ESCOs realized the benefits of providing large-scale kilowatt or kilowatt-hour reduction through these turnkey projects to large industrial and commercial customers. And back in these days, the ESCOs actually financed the projects, which I found quite fascinating. And then over time, the documented success of some of these earlier energy performance contracts led federal and state programs to promote energy performance contracting as a means to achieve energy reductions. And the implementation of the International Protocol of Performance and Measurement and Verification Protocol actually provided the tool to give lenders confidence in the numbers that were provided by the ESCOs. So these lenders would then finance these large-scale energy performance contracting projects. And then there was a short pause, 2003, with the collapse of Enron and suspension of the federal program. And at this time, there was uncertainty regarding the deregulation of the electric utility industry. So there was a slowdown in the growth of EPC, but the latest Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory report estimates or puts the current ESCO investment in EPC projects at about $5 billion per year. So there are a number of ESCOs that are involved in these EPCs. They would not be involved in them if they were not successful, and there wouldn't continue to be the investment on the governmental entity side if they did not think that they were also achieving success through these programs. So that's just kind of an indirect measure of the success of energy performance contracting and how they would be able to help your programs. So getting into the Kansas specific, the Facility Conservation Improvement Program, this was actually implemented by state legislature in 2000. And for this reason, when somebody refers to it as a KCC program, we try and stop them from saying that. It's a state legislated program. And it's kind of like when we used to do work with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment and talk about environmental regulations. We would sometimes refer to them as KDHE regulations, and KDHE was always very quick to correct us in that terminology. It's not a KDHE regulation, it's a state of Kansas regulation, which is administered by and enforced by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and this is no different. So this program was implemented by the state legislature, and the KCC currently provides administration of that program, but they did not write the statute here, and their role right now is in interpreting what this statute says and enforcing it through their administration. And you can say this is Kansas Statute 75-37 125. Our role, the Kansas Energy Program's role, is just to provide technical assistance to the Kansas Corporation Commission Energy Division. So if any of the entities on the call today or that get involved in the FCIP at a later point would ask us for an interpretation of one of these paragraphs, we would say, not going to do it. That's KCC's role. But if there is a technical interpretation to anything in either the preliminary audit or the investment grade audit or any of the calculations that go into those audits, then that's where we come in and we actually review all those documents and look for anomalies, look for perhaps some calculations that were done, you know, inadvertently, incorrectly, or something like that. And we do have, we feel, some pretty good qualifications to do this. We're a staff of 3 right now, so not a lot of us, but within those 3, we have one registered professional engineer, 3 certified energy managers, and 2 certified measurement and verification professionals. And that's not to say that there would be something in the reports that we might not understand. But we can feel pretty confident about going back to the ESCOs and saying, hey, you know, we don't understand this. Can you either, you know, walk this through us or provide some clarification? So we feel pretty comfortable doing that. The FCIP allows government-owned buildings to implement energy efficiency projects without those upfront capital costs. And as Tim Unruh mentioned last week, it is frequently these the governmental entities that really either don't have a capital budget, or to obtain it, they have to go through a lot more bureaucracy than a typical private organization would. So these energy performance contracts work out very well for them. The projects are paid for through guaranteed energy and operational savings, and we'll provide some examples of that in just a few slides shortly. The program, the FCIP, the Kansas FCIP, does require an annual budget neutral cash flow with a payback of less than 30 years. And the 30 years is kind of an anomaly in the state-run energy performance contracts. It is one of the longer payback periods that you'll see. Frequently you'll see 10 and 15, some 20, but I think Kansas is definitely one of the longer ones with a payback of less than 30 years. However, the current interpretation within the KCC is that even though this says a payback of less than 30 years, the KCC Energy Division right now requires budget neutral cash flow through the finance term. So if you're just financing it for 15 or 20 years, then that budget neutral has to occur within that finance term. So examples of some EPC or FCIP projects, and really the EPC and FCIP are pretty much synonymous, except that the FCIP has some some Kansas specific limitations to it. One of the most common ones that you'll see is lighting. Of course, many of the facilities will still have fluorescent lighting. Hopefully not T12 fluorescent lighting, but you know, even here at K-State, you'll see some T12 fluorescent lighting throughout some of the buildings, or at least portions of those buildings. So that's one area that the ESCOs really like, and one of the reasons for that is because lighting is going to have a pretty short payback, which will help bundle in some of those projects that might have longer paybacks, such as heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, control systems, or some of the building envelope improvements. So those are some of the common ones, but basically any project that will result in energy savings can be considered. For instance, roofing replacement, we've had some consider that. The only negative for those kind of projects are that they might have an extremely long payback. So you'll just have to look at it in aggregate and see how maybe some of the shorter paybacks can help in that. And then also cogeneration and combined heating and power are some projects that you can consider. So why do energy performance contracting, or why do the facility conservation improvement program? And so we have some that are listed here. the biggest, one of the biggest benefits we feel is that there's no need for the entity then to issue separate requests for proposals. The KCC is currently in the process of finalizing the list of Kansas approved ESCOs, and once that is finalized, then all you would have to do is select one of the pre-approved ESCOs and go through the FCIP, and then the basically the ESCO will develop the specifications and hire the outside consultants and engineers. So it saves time on your part, and you don't have to do all that research. The FCIP process does have pre-approved construction markup rates for the ESCOs. These are, well, will, once the ESCOs are approved, these are capped at the max rate, but those rates may be negotiated downward. So just because there is, there are numbers that are in the proposals that the ESCOs submit to the for the RFP for the energy for the FCIP process, those numbers are still able to be negotiated by the government entity, and that's part of the assistance that KCC provides for the FCIP program. So they provide guidance to the facility throughout the entire process. So that's you don't have to go through it alone, I guess is what we're trying to say. You have Lynn at the Energy Division that will provide assistance and attend meetings, and we at the Kansas Energy Program attend the meetings also if we're available. But one of the major things that the energy program does here at K-State is we review all of the documents from the if you invite somebody in and you ask them to submit a proposal, we'll review those proposals. When they do the preliminary audit, when they do the investment grade audit, and when they prepare the energy performance contract, we review every single page of those documents, and because in many times you won't have the time to, but we will, and we'll identify any questions or concerns that we have to both the governmental entity and to the ESCO, because we look at this as hopefully a partnership with all three of the parties involved. We don't like to play any gotcha games. So if we have time and we identify something that we think is an anomaly, we will go to the ESCO and try and work that out. If we're under a tight time schedule, then our primary person to whom we submit any concerns is KCC and the governmental entity. And I guess this is a good time to perhaps emphasize that KCC advocates for the governmental entity, not necessarily the ESCO. We want to all work together, but primarily the client for the energy division at KCC is the governmental entity going through the FCIP process. So this is one of the tables that you would probably see if you were going through the process, and the ESCO is going to provide a list of energy conservation measures, and for each one of those they're going to do a number of different calculations and show you, okay, this is what it costs, this is what the proposed system is going to cost, these are what your projected energy savings are going to be, and here are your guaranteed energy savings. And the reason I put this in, I wanted to show you one, these are very complex, and God bless the energy service companies. They have to go through a lot of stuff to try and put these calculations together for you. Some of the calculations are more straightforward than others, and some of them have to have a lot of assumptions built into it. We, through the FCIP process, want those assumptions to be as transparent to the entity going through the FCIP process as possible. So yeah, we'll go through those and identify them. So basically, they will come up with their best estimate of what the projected energy savings are. Now, because energy performance contracting is based on an energy savings guarantee, they're going to try and say, okay, well, for lighting, we're pretty confident in the calculations that we did for that. So they might reduce that only by 5%. But for an HVAC, where they're having to put in a lot of predictions or assumptions about building envelope and sometimes personal behavior and set points and any myriad of number of variables that can occur. So maybe their confidence in those projected energy savings are a lot less than the lighting. So they will further reduce the amount that they will guarantee for those calculations. So but the guaranteed savings are the ones that are going to work into the overall payback for the projects. And if the ESCO does not hit, or if the facility does not hit those guaranteed savings, then the ESCO has to make up the shortfall, either by providing a check for the shortfall, or upon agreement with the entity, they will go back to the facility and try and fix the situation. Well, diagnose it first and then fix it to actually hit those guaranteed energy savings. So very complex, and one of the things that the ESCOs will see in the new contract, and many of them do this. This is just a kind of a modified one that I took out from one of the IGAs, is that we're going to ask them to do the payback for every ECM, so that when you're going from the investment grade audit to the energy performance contracting, you can see that, well, okay, well, maybe this is a 14-year payback, this is a payback, and this is a 5-year payback. So maybe if the 50-year payback was just a project that you thought might be a cool thing to do, but when you look at the individual payback, you might just say, oh, no, let's not do that one. Let's put it into another one. And the ESCOs are very good about working with you on all of the pros and cons for these different ECMs, and then helping you come together with a package for what you might want to do. This is the one of the pro formas that you'll see, and the only thing that I really wanted to show here is that these are where some of your guaranteed cost savings are going to come in from the ECMs that were identified on the previous slide. But here you can see that this is budget neutral with a debt service of $30,000 and a guaranteed program cost of $30,000. So just wanted to show you the budget neutrality that the ESCOs provide. So if you're interested, how do you go about participating in this? Well, the first thing we'd tell you to do is reach out to the KCC to let them know you'd like to use the FCIP. And this might be just something that you hear from maybe one of your similar governmental entities. If you're at like if you're at a school and you're at the some school conference and you hear that one facility's done it, so you're interested in it, or it might be from one of the ESCOs coming to you directly and explaining the program to you and suggesting that you enter it. What we're trying to do through this webinar and through the workshop is actually trying to promote the energy performance contracting and trying to get you in touch with some of the ESCOs so that you can do this and improve your facility and save money at the same time. We do, the KCC does suggest that you select 3 of the pre-approved ESCOs to conduct a preliminary energy assessment. So this is basically kind of like an audition or an interview. So you're gonna have a number of them come over. They'll come up with some ideas. They'll present it to your school board or city commission or some other organization to get approval, and then we say based on the results of the assessment, but relationship does play an important part also. So based on the results of the assessment and your comfort level with the ESCOs, choose one to conduct the comprehensive investment grade audit that will really go into the nitty-gritty about a lot of the variables that are involved and the detailed energy efficiency opportunities for your facility. Then you'll work with the ESCO to select the improvements because they'll come up with an entire list, and this might be your hey, if money wasn't an option, here's what we can do for you. But generally, I've heard that money is usually an obstacle. So you'll have to pick and choose which ones work best for you that also meet the scope of the FCIP program. So if the IGA is approved, you would sign an energy performance contract with the ESCO. And I guess I'll say this also, that at the conclusion of the investment grade audit, you will have to pay for that particular audit. And but you don't necessarily have to sign an energy performance contract. There are a number of reasons why an entity maybe would go through the investment grade audit and not sign the energy performance contract. We've seen some of those, but the intention, of course, is to actually go through the EPC and implement some of the projects. So then the ESCO would complete the energy improvements, and I will also say this, that the ESCOs are very good at working with the entity to try and implement these projects with as minimal disruption to your operational facilities. So if you're at a school, they'll work with you to maybe do things during spring break or summer break or in the evenings. But I think they're really good at communicating with the clients to find out how to best implement these with minimal disruption. And then once the energy improvements are completed, the payment begins and the M&V kicks in to ensure that the savings are met. We'll say that there is an FCIP participation fee if you do go through this. It's on a sliding scale. So it's 4% of the first 100,000, 3% of the next 400,000, 2% of the next 500,000, 1% of the next 4 million, and then 0.5% of any project amount greater than 5 million. And you can see different examples here. One of a $4,000 project, which results in a $13,000 FCIP fee, or 3.25% of the total project costs. But for a $12 million project, the fee is $101,000, which is only 0.84% of the total project cost. So you can see the effect of the sliding scale there. And it's really up to the ESCOs to determine if they're at what's their minimum that they can actually do at a facility. And I'm not intelligent enough about the ESCO world to say that, oh, well, they can do projects that are only 200,000 versus whatever. So that's just part of the conversation that you'll have to have with the energy service company. So here's a few recent FCIP projects with which we have somewhat been involved. The city of Lawrence did a lot of HVAC for a number of buildings. They did swimming pool ventilation and lighting. And I believe they had about, well, I'm going to say 12 to 18 buildings in there. Not 100, but I know they had at least 12 buildings. It was a very large project. And we just spoke with, well, we just were at a meeting with Jasmine Moore, who's with the City of Lawrence. She's their sustainability manager. I was hoping to have the results of the City of Lawrence project, but she indicated that they're expecting their energy results in about a month, but that she thinks they're on track to hit their savings, if not to exceed their savings. So I can say that Jasmine has already agreed to participate in the fall workshop. So once we schedule that, we'll hear the results of that project. The City of Eudora did lighting, web-based thermostat installations, and water meters. We'll say that the water meters would not be approved under the new FCIP contract, and that goes back to that statutory language I alluded to earlier. And we'll get into the results of that project in the next slide. Washington County School District did windows, lighting, HVAC, and building envelope. And I can tell you that the current superintendent of the Washington County School District likes the FCIP process considerably. This project is the third one that she has done as a superintendent for different schools. She did one in Wamego, and I forget the earlier one, but she's a big proponent of the FCIP process, and she's very, very happy with the results. She has also the Washington County School District Superintendent is also very willing to, if her schedule allows, to present at the workshop in the fall. So just to let you know, she'll be on the agenda as well. So I just want to show you some results from the City of Eudora. I'm very confident in these results because subsequent to their implementation of the energy efficiency projects, the Kansas Energy Program through the KCC offered to keep track of their energy bills. So every month they send me their electric and gas, and we put it into a spreadsheet to see how they're doing, and then send them an analysis. So this is the building, the all buildings chart that we prepare for them. So the City of Eudora had 6 buildings that were in the project. And you can see this is what we love to see from an energy perspective, just an overall trend downward, and this is per month per year. So 15 was the baseline year for them. 16 and 17 is when they were implementing the projects, and then we've been keeping track of the energy since. So you can see monthly what's going on with each building, and well, not each building. This is the buildings combined. But this shows a clear picture of all the buildings for their annual usage, and you can see that they've gone from a little bit over 1.4 million kilowatt hours to just a little bit over 1.2 million kilowatt hours. And so this is very pleasing to them to be able to see these results and say, okay, yeah, the project worked for us. This is their one of the 6 buildings, and yes, I did cherry pick this. This is one of their higher performing buildings. They actually have 3 or 4 that are doing quite well, but this is I think I calculated a 23% reduction in their energy consumption from over about 320,000 or 330. Down to just over 250,000. So again, good results. But I threw this next slide in to show that some buildings may not perform the way you would expect from pre-implementation to post-implementation. So this is the administrative office, and you can see that this is the baseline year of 2015 and then 2016, and then for some reason there was a big spike in energy consumption, and so would have to go in and say, okay, well, what are you doing differently that you weren't doing prior to this? We have not conducted that analysis yet, but the reason I wanted to show you this is because it's really the aggregate of the projects that are the guaranteed, not the individual, individual buildings. But the final result, in addition to the energy savings that they have, is that the City of Eudora did receive a Pollution Prevention Award from the Environmental Protection Agency Region 7 on the project that it did. And so that was just another thing that we were able to do for them, and to show them that they're committed to trying to lower their impact on the environment, and also lowering operating costs for its citizens. So that was a pretty pleasing result for that. We do work, and I know the ESCOs work with the entities as well. I know the ESCO 360 engineers, Wildan, provided the energy performance contract for the City of Lawrence, is working with them to certify them as an Energy Star certified facility. So those are other services that the ESCOs and the KCC provide. So just an FYI on that. So that's basically it for the webinar this morning. We have the contact information there for Lynn with the KCC, and then myself, Yvonne Cook, and Ryan Hamill with the Kansas Energy Program. And again, just to emphasize the hierarchy, we do not speak for the KCC Energy Division. It is they administer the program, they do the interpretation of the statutes and the applicability of certain projects. We just use the guidance that KCC gives us to review the documents and provide comments on those. So that's the reason we have mainly the KCC Energy Office contact information below the website, their email address, and then their phone number. And with that, I will open it up for questions. And again, I will just emphasize that this recording and the slides will be available to anybody who wishes to view it. We'll probably put it up on the KCC website, and it'll definitely be up on our website as well.